1 minute you're the face of the conservative movement. Now you're a dairy farmer. Who the heck is Will Witt?
I was working for PragerU, everyone knows that. And then I said, well, what do I really want to do with my life? If you have bad health, you are not going to be able to fight against a tyrannical government, especially the overreaching government that we have. So it's imperative that people look at this kind of stuff and take care of it.
He was the heartthrob of the conservative movement, creating provocative man-on-the-street videos for PragerU, known for that head of hair you can't miss anywhere, and for years worked to introduce conservative ideas to young voters. But there was more to the story, as there always is with public figures. Today, Will Witt joins me to discuss surviving child sexual abuse, leaving atheism, if conservative media silences their talent, and why health should be the leading concern of voters today. He believes in it so much that he's basically left politics behind to focus solely on educating people about real food and the chronic health crossroads that we're at as a country. Will also enlightens us on everything from not brushing his teeth to his mysterious engagement and relationship weaknesses. This is a must-see interview on the Real Alex Clark YouTube channel, and we're also on Instagram at Culture Apothecary. This is the first show of my rebranded podcast where we'll focus on healing a sick culture twice a week with totally different guests at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can find my guest social media, sponsored discount codes, and more in the show notes. I'm Alex Clark, and please welcome best-selling author of Do Not Comply and conservative superstar and health advocate Will Witt with his most vulnerable interview to date on Culture Apothecary. 1 minute you're the face of the conservative movement. Now you're a dairy farmer. Who the heck is Will Witt?
I mean, that's a big question with everything that's going on. I was working for PragerU, everyone knows that, making the man-on-the-street videos, did that for 6 years living in LA, then moved out to Florida to start a newspaper, which was very successful. I ended up shutting down the newspaper about 6 months ago. And then I said, well, what do I really want to do with my life? And what do I think other people should be learning and trying to do that I can then use those skills and then teach other people in the same influencing or at least educational way that I've been doing? And so I got in touch with this raw dairy farm around me in Florida. And I just called him up and was like, hey, I'd love to come and see how you do the milking process, just what you do, so that maybe I can do it in the future someday. And he's this Irish guy. He's like, sure, yeah, you can come down and see what we're doing. And so I go down there, see the process. It was incredible. And I just kept going there. And then I was like, hey, what do you think about doing like a 3-4 month apprenticeship with me at the farm and working there with you and learning all of the tricks and trades of what you do? And he said, okay. I mean, free labor, you know. So I came down and I've been working at this raw dairy farm for about 2 months now, have about a month left so that one day I can open up my own farm and share with everyone, I'm sure your audience knows, the benefits of raw milk and regenerative agriculture.
Is Florida a raw milk legal state?
Florida is pet consumption only. So if you want to sell raw milk, it's kind of funny because you have like half and half. It's like half and half for pets,
Yeah.
you know, but that's kind of the workaround. But yeah, it's only pet consumption only, which in a certain sense, you know, it's not a good thing that it's for pet consumption only, but in a certain sense, it's like if someone were to, you had a raw dairy farm and someone drank it and got sick from it. And then they came back and said, well, we got sick from your raw milk. It's like, did you read the label? It's for pet consumption only. That's your fault for doing it. You know, so in a way, it protects the farmer in that sense. But of course, it's all bureaucratic nonsense from the FDA and these people making it outlawed.
Have you broken up with politics for good?
No, I mean, I don't think I'll ever break up with politics for good. I mean, the world is inherently political. I think I've broken up with the dichotomy of Republican, Democrat, and talking about elections all the time and these candidates and things, mostly for the sense that when I think about my life and all this time that I've been in it, and just even growing up, I think about a politician, I say, what politician has ever done something to make my life better? You know, I mean, you really sit down, you think about it. I mean, you could think of maybe 1 or 2 people doing very few specific things that might have helped you out, or especially if you're in local politics, some specific things like that. But I'm thinking about some senators, some congressmen. No. These people continually, over and over again, sell out the American people for their own benefit. And to me, I see most of the politics today as TMZ, you know? It's people who want a sense of identity, because the identity crisis in America is so terrible because of being atomized by social media and the culture that we have. So they're looking for some sort of group, some sort of identity, and people find that within politics. Instead of saying, I'm an individual made in the name, in the image of God, with all these amazing things that I can do, it is, I feel insecure in myself, I need validation, and so I join a group to be a part of other people. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't going to agree on certain values that are good, and you can find coalitions of those people, but both parties in the American system work to take advantage, I feel like, of people's insecurities of not feeling like they have anywhere to go.
Would you say that you're now a part of the food freedom movement?
The FFM, as we can call it. Yes, I feel like I am a part of the food freedom movement. It's about so much more than food, though, because food is only one part of it. Because, I grew up in Colorado, right? And then went to Boulder for college. And all those people around there, they're obsessed with the food. They're obsessed with the health stuff. They're granola as hell. And I don't like these people, These people are very pompous in the way that they present things. They're not always good people, but they're so health conscious and this and that. And I lived in LA, too, for 6 years. That's how these people are. And so when it comes to like the food freedom movement and those kind of things, I think it goes beyond that and just trying to live a life that we are intended to live. And that goes with the food, with the health, but also with your own integrity, with your own values, with your own morals, with the way that you build and treat relationships in your life, with your connection with God and with Christ. All these things kind of go in together. And if it's missing one piece, then it kind of all falls apart. And so the food part is just really one part of it.
What led you down this journey of looking into our food system being completely weaponized? This entire non-toxic journey you're on, you're not using shampoo, and you're talking about raw milk.
6 months.
6 months,
6
no
months,
shampoo.
no shampoo.
This is, this is radical. This is radical that conservatives now, you and I, are talking about this. All of a sudden, the mainstream media says that we're enemy number one.
I had gout, if anyone's familiar with gout. It's called the disease of kings, which, might be fitting for me in my workout. But essentially, it's inflammation in the foot. That's what gout comes from an excessive amount of inflammation. When you look at what inflammation is in the body, your body is producing a stress response to something, some sort of toxic stimuli or something. And so when I talked to doctors about this was 4 years ago or so, they came and they said, well, you need to stop eating red meat and get off of that, and then the inflammation should go down. And, stop drinking, stop eating red meat.
And at the time, how would you describe your diet?
The normal Los Angeles diet, eating out basically every single meal. If I cook something, it was maybe HelloFresh or something like that. It was HelloFresh, I'm sure, is fine, but not the best that you can get. But that's basically what I was eating. I wasn't health conscious whatsoever. I didn't even know what raw milk was. I didn't know what pasteurization was or any of these kind of things. I was just doing what everyone else does, eating what everyone else ate.
You just trust it. What they say is good.
Everyone kind of knows in a sense that you go to Pizza Hut and you get a 16-piece boneless wings and you eat it all at one time and you wake up the next day and you're like, man, I feel like hell. And you know what it's from, but you continually do it anyway because it's just what you do. People don't know the other alternatives, which I think is why it's so important that you're doing this and everything else and all the other people, because the food stuff is so much people don't even know the alternative. I had no idea raw milk is. I knew all these things about politics and the way the world works and, all these different things. And I had no idea, even how the simplest things in my body work to produce things.
So that's kind of similar to me. And so I'm curious to hear more about what led you into becoming like obsessed with food and pharma, because for me during the pandemic, obviously we saw the vaccine mandate. I was like, this is super corrupt and weird. But I knew that I had heard that phrase before, like big pharma or whatever. I had never heard the phrase big food. And never thought about it. My entire diet was basically standard American diet, which is almost exclusively processed food. Mm-hmm. Never heard about seed oils, didn't care. I've always been naturally thin. So I think that was a blessing. Some people, they're more aware of healthy eating and things like that. And I kind of took it for granted that I never have struggled with weight. So then I just ate whatever I wanted, which was causing a lot of problems. Then I ended up with an autoimmune disease and all these different things. Yeah. Once we saw, with Hunter Biden's laptop, once I saw how corrupt big tech was, was, how it was all bought and paid for, how the government controlled the media, the government was controlling pharma and vice versa, all of it. Then I was like, well, what else am I not thinking of? What else are we told? Like, just trust, just trust the government when it comes to education. What we suggest for anything medical, for your medicine and all this. And I was like, well, what else? What else? And I was like, food. And I was like, is that a thing? Is there a rabbit hole with food? This is literally my thought process. So I started Googling like food rabbit holes, big food. I just thought like, I'd never heard it before. I was like, I wonder if that's a thing. Of course it is. Then I start really diving into this and I'm like, oh my gosh, the food stuff is affecting all of the rest. Why are no conservatives talking about this? And then I was reading everything and I was consuming every podcast that I could. And then I was like, this should be a top talking point for conservatives because we care about freedom in all these other areas of life. We want to be able to make our own choices and we don't want the government, meddling and telling us what's best for parenting our kids and where to send them to school and all this. Why are we listening to them when it comes to what we should or shouldn't eat? And so that led me down to my journey. So what was it for you? You have the gout.
Yeah, so I had the gout and things were not going well. It felt like I was stepping on needles every time I took a step. This is back when I lived in LA and I stopped eating the red meat and it didn't change. I still was having all these gout episodes, and so I started looking into it more and actually got in touch with a great guy, Dr. Jeff Barkey. You guys might have heard about and asked him about it. And he was saying, no, that's not what you do. You need to eat foods that are rich essentially in all the vitamins that you actually need. You should be eating more red meat. You should be cutting out the processed foods and eating things that you can pronounce when you look at the labels. And I said, okay. And I started doing that. And then I heard about raw milk and these kind of things and started doing that. And my gout completely disappeared. And I've maybe had 1 or 2 flare-ups of gout over the last 3 years, but pretty much it's completely all gone because I've changed my diet completely. And my body was full of inflammation all over the place. And some of the inflammation in the environment you can't stop. I mean, you have Roundup being sprayed on monocropping farms all over the country, which then turns into clouds and then rains down on you, even if you're an organic farm. Inflammation is going to come in some sort of way, but reducing it as much as you can is the secret to true health.
And you were not eating right, but would you say that you were pretty fit? I mean, were you active? Were you somebody that like enjoyed working out and stuff, or you weren't doing any of that?
No. But like you, I mean, I've always been.
You're like me, skinny fat. We're skinny,
yeah,
but on the inside, like we're rotting.
Yeah, exactly. I used to be so fit. Like when I was in high school, I mean, most people were fit in high school, unless you're like really letting yourself go. But like I was pretty fit in high school. I was a lifeguard. I cared about, the aesthetics and those kind of things. And then when I lived in LA, I didn't care so much anymore. I didn't really work out or things like that. So no, not at all.
Well, at our Women's Leadership Summit this summer, I was selling this Got Raw Milk shirt and it had a little dairy cow on there, and the media picked it up and it's been written about in a bunch of different outlets, basically saying it's the most dangerous shirt on the internet. Why are conservatives all of a sudden trying to convince people to drink raw milk? They're so dangerous. They told people not to get the vaccine. Now they're talking about raw milk. I mean, do you feel like we are radical extremists who are just flirting with death?
Of course, yeah. You say that sarcastically, but I actually do feel like a radical extremist in that sense. And I think that's a good thing, because if the world is normal and this is the way the world works, I don't want to be normal. I want to be the radical extremist, and not just for the sake of being an extremist and can label myself that, but in the sense of if the world is rotten and it's full of sin and people who are doing horrible, evil things, I don't want anything to do with that. So yes, I am a radical extremist and I'm completely fine with that.
Are you familiar with the regenerative farmer Joel Salatin?
Oh, he's great. I'll say we were making chicken coops at the farm. We'd done 2 chicken coops by scratch, and I was using his polyface designs to design the chicken coops that we made.
Oh,
so,
sick.
Yeah.
Well, I had him on the podcast, and
that's so cool.
One thing that was interesting is him and I differed because he's a libertarian and I'm a conservative. So we kind of got into this discussion. He agrees that big food is evil and that there are a lot of ingredients that are allowed that are terrible. But his position is it's up to the individual to know about it and then say, I'm not going to eat it, but that it should all be legal because, he wants every drug legalized. We should be able to do what we want. If we all want to commit suicide, then we all commit suicide. Like he does not want any law, period, no government, right? Because he's a libertarian. Yeah. So I said, well, my position is I do like a small amount of government when we know something is hurting or killing innocent Americans. And I think a lot of the ingredients that America allows compared to other countries that they're doing that. That's one of those small instances where I would like the government to step in to a certain extent and be like, hey, we're banning food dyes. What is your opinion on that? Do you feel like you agree more with the Joel Salatin or conservatives and like you'd like to see a little regulation on big food?
Yeah, no, I would love a dictatorship if they agreed with everything that I agree with, you know? That's like the new conservative position. But, you know, obviously I think libertarianism comes from a place of, no offense to libertarians out there, but no moral standing, because it implies that people essentially can make all their own decisions and they know what's best for them. But when you look at voting and you look at all these different things that happen in America, obviously people don't know what's best for them. And a lot of times people need to be told what is best for them. You know, as unfortunate as that sounds, everyone wants to think that they're so autonomous and I'm so esoteric and all these other people don't know what's going on. But in reality, people don't know what's best for them. And so if you have a system in place, which I think the only way democracy works and a constitutional republic that is having a form of government works, if you have morals and rights and laws governed by an objective law, which is God's law, in my view. And so I am conservative in that sense because I think that those types of things do need to be regulated. Those types of things do need to be laws on the books. I mean, a libertarian believes that, you know, I mean, I'm sure libertarians won't all say that this is the case, but, you know, if you believe in the not government, then you have a 5-year-old going and marrying a 25-year-old. Where's the immoral sense in that to one of these types of people? Say that the government shouldn't be getting involved in that kind of stuff. Where's the line that the libertarian draws when it comes to these types of laws? I'm sure most of them will say, of course, that's wrong, that's horrible. But where do you draw the line? If there's no moral basis for where you are drawing the line, it's just a matter of your opinion.
Well, and him and I didn't get into an abortion discussion apart from him saying I am very anti-abortion, I am pro-life.
But that's, again, it comes down to the moral argument. If you have no moral basis, no objective basis behind the truth of what you're actually trying to legislate, then you're not going to be able to make a system that works for the majority of people, because then it's only catering to people's opinions. And you can't legislate based on opinions. You have to legislate based on facts and things that are actually objectively grounded.
Well, and I told him too, I said, okay, but Joel, you're talking about people, we need to let people make their own decision and trust that they'll make the best one and all this. And I said, I understand what you're saying, that we need to put the responsibility on the individual, but the problem is that when the food companies are buying the studies that are telling you things are healthy, it's so corrupt. It takes someone like you or I that's obsessed with this to dig through all this information and discover this. The average American has no idea how corrupt food and pharma is, how all the studies are bought and paid for, that's legal, that, you know, your pill company can put out a study saying that the pill is safe. All of that is so evil. And I was like, so people really can't make their own decisions because the entire system is rigged.
Yeah. And isn't it always so funny, I'm sure you've dealt with this too, where you go and talk to someone about these new health things or things about big pharma or the way that people should live in this way, and they tell you that you haven't done the research. They come back to you and say, what are you talking about, raw milk? You obviously haven't researched all this stuff about pasteurization or big pharma pills or something like that. I haven't researched about it. And it's like the things that they are saying is their argument is what everybody knows. The things that everybody knows is just the mainstream opinion. And then they come and tell me, you haven't done the research, when I was living in your research all this time. And so I will say this to people who are watching and want to get into this space and these kind of things. It is lonelier than the inverse. I'm sure you can familiarize with that a little bit, in the sense of it's very difficult, you know, and that's not just for food stuff, but just the way you live your life. It becomes a lonely road because other people don't want to turn those blinders off.
It's actually really heartbreaking to know what we know and then see people that you love and care about ignore it or tell you like, I don't care about that. Like, you're ridiculous, Alex. You only live once and all of this kind of stuff, and just still participate in it, still eat that stuff. That's the hardest part for me. Yeah. Is also like, you can't, you know, be telling like your grandparents, your parents, you know, people like that in your life. You can't just be like, don't eat that. You can't be telling them what to do. Like, you can share the information, but at the end of the day, yeah, they do get to make their own decision, and I can't, you know, force them to do something. And so that's really hard for me.
No.
We're less than 60 days out from the election. Remember that your voice isn't just heard at the ballot box November 5th. It's actually heard every day. How? By voting with your dollar when it comes to your food. When you choose Good Ranchers, you're casting your vote for 100% American grass-fed, grain-finished meat, supporting local ranchers who embody the values that make our nation strong. And right now, with their presidential promo, you can subscribe to any Good Ranchers box and get a free add-on for 4 years. Choose from chicken breast, ground beef, bacon, or salmon, All American, all delicious. Plus, with my exclusive code Clark, you'll get $25 off your first box plus free shipping. Sometimes we don't live near any good farms or ranchers ourselves, so that's when I like to suggest Good Ranchers to people. Get amazing tasting, high quality, better than organic chicken, pork, grass-fed grain-finished beef, and wild-caught fish straight to your door. Go to goodranchers.com and use code Clark for $25 off your first box and choose a 4-year add-on for every box. Choose from chicken breast, ground beef, bacon, or salmon. Go to goodranchers.com, use code Clark. That's goodranchers.com with code Clark. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. Tell me about your goals and dreams with your own dairy farm. Like, what do you imagine your farming philosophy being?
Ungovernable. That's
I want to be ungovernable.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so what I'm actually doing, so I'm working at a dairy farm, but then I'm actually going back to school. I know Witt, the poster child of dropping out of school.
You're going back to school?
Yeah, so it's all online, so no way I'm going to any physical classes. But I'm doing online school, and I'm studying clinical psychology to become a licensed counselor for people.
Really?
Yeah.
You were just, within like 2 years,
Yeah.
You've just like done a 180.
Yeah, quite the enigma, I'm sure, for a lot of people.
But I like that because you're always learning.
Yeah. I suffocate if I'm not learning.
The left doesn't want the new generation of kids to know is that you can, it doesn't have to be though a literal physical school throughout your life. You can always learn all of these new things.
Yeah. I feel like I've learned so many things.
Me too.
Like already going into this program for clinical psychology, I've done a ton of research on the brain and the way that people function and work, and also how diet impacts the way that we make decisions in our life, which is a very important thing that not a lot of neurologists and things are talking about. But if anyone has read my book, they'll understand I went through some very traumatic things when I was a child. Sexual abuse, that kind of stuff from a male member of my family, these kind of things. I didn't know we were getting so deep today on this podcast. Here we go.
It tends to happen with me.
These things have really affected my life in a lot of ways that for a long time was very negative in the way that I was living and so what I have now realized through the power of God is that God is the one who heals, and it's finding the solace in him that I feel able to continue to go on and do the things that I do, which is also part of the reason why I've gotten out of some of the politics stuff, in the sense of, I'm kind of all over the place, but in the sense of, it's not so much about me. It's not about me making a video for conservative politics and trying to get likes and views and money or whatever it is. It's about me trying to educate people and do something better for other people.
Yeah.
Which I think is what it's really all about. And so saying that, I went through these things and am now trying to open up my farm. That is a farm, raw dairy, regenerative agriculture, but also have it be, I guess you could say, a ranch retreat for young men who have dealt with intense trauma in their lives.
Wow.
So a fellowship, ministry, that kind of stuff for a lot of young men. So, and they'll come and work on the farm and learn all about, because the main thing when it comes to this type of trauma as a young man, the biggest thing that they lose is confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one thing that they're missing. And there's a lot of things in the brain, like your amygdala is all messed up from PTSD and stuff like that. And so they lack confidence in themselves. So you bring them into a place like a farm, and they're able to work and learn skills and these kind of things and connect with other people their age. And they build that confidence in themselves that they need to then go on with life for the rest of what they're doing. So that's the plan. I mean, this is, years down the line. Who knows? It might all change, but that's the idea.
When you were enduring the sexual abuse as a child, at the time, did other people in your family know? Did you speak up right away, or was that something that you were kind of dealing with internally for a while before people knew? Because now obviously it's written about in your book, but before that, how long did it take for other people to know?
So it happened when I was a child, and then I actually didn't even remember it until I was 12 years old. It had been completely shut out of my mind.
Did something trigger it for you?
Yeah, I had gotten sent to detention for horseplay in middle school, goofing around with a friend or something. I got sent to detention, and for some reason, I just started getting all these like horrible, vivid images in my mind. And it just all came back to me in this moment. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, this is what happened. And I had a complete mental break, suicidal thoughts, all that kind of stuff then at that time. So yeah, that was really tough getting through that. No one really understood in my family, but it's been a long way coming.
If somebody's listening and they want to disclose past abuse to their parent, or they are a parent and their child has disclosed that to them, what do you think is the best way for a parent to respond? One
thing that someone, at least in my case, and from a lot of the other studies and things that I've looked at this more probably applies more to young men, but I think it applies to young women just as much, in the sense that they are looking for a sense of validation because in the abuse, they did not get that. They could not trust someone. And so then afterwards, they're looking for someone to essentially fill that void of feeling accepted and loved for who they actually are, when in that moment they were not. And so what that parent needs to do is accept that child, or accept that however old they are when they're coming and talking to their parent about it. But the person needs to feel like the person that they are is okay.
Yeah.
That it's, this all sounds like very like Christian women podcast stuff, but that they need to feel like they are actually okay and that they are enough. Which again sounds so like, live, laugh, love type of stuff, but in reality,
and that it's not
so,
their fault.
Yeah, exactly. That it is okay for the person that they are, and that they don't need to feel guilty and ashamed, and they don't need to go search out in other places for validation from other people. They can find it in the parent there because the parent cares about them and is accepting them for no matter what.
Do you think enduring what you went through is what led you on a path towards atheism, because you couldn't conceptualize how there could be a good, loving God that would allow something like that to happen to you as a child?
Yes, it led me to atheism for sure. Because, the Christian women still died in childbirth, the Muslims still died crossing the road, all these different things. And then how could a benevolent God let these things happen to me that tore my life apart in my youth? And it wasn't until I became a believer, it was, wow, everything that happened to me, as horrible as it was at the time, is exactly how everything should have happened. It has made me into the person that I am. If I could change my life and start from scratch again, I wouldn't. I couldn't do that.
How do you go from hating God, not believing God exists, to loving him and knowing he does?
It's a very tough question. And it's hard to always conceptualize when a lot comes from personal experience, But I know that for me, when I was actually trying to understand Christ and trying to understand the Bible, I actually just ordered the Bible online. This was during COVID, the beginning of COVID. And I said, all right, all these conservative people, they're always talking about this thing, the Bible.
Did your followers and audience, were they always like, Will, you need to become a Christian? Was it annoying?
Yeah, all the time. I didn't find it so annoying. I was just like, how do you guys believe in that? It's so dumb. Like, just think about it for a second. There's no God. There's no snake tempting ancestors 6,000 years ago, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, it's so dumb. But then I read the Bible, and it's hard to explain, like I'm saying, but it was transformative in the sense that I read the 4 Gospels. And when you read it, you essentially have to make a choice. You can either ignore it, you can say that it's lies, or you can believe that it's true. And for God knows why, it was so moving to me that I had no other choice but to give my life to Christ. And that's what I did. And so about 2 months after that, or 3 months after that, I got baptized in Hermosa Beach, California with Jack Hibbs. Greatest decision of my life.
And so now living in Florida, have you found a home church there yet?
Yeah. So the reason I moved out to Tampa out of any places in Florida was because of my pastor out there. So his name's Jake. He does Creekside Church out there in Tampa. If any of you guys are looking for a church out there, he's the absolute best. He's basically my dad. This guy, he's like my father figure
So he's
out there.
discipling you.
Yeah, he's the best guy.
So do you guys I know some people like meet with a pastor or elder at their church. They're doing like, coffee every Wednesday morning or things like that to like talk and read scripture together or pick each other's brains or hold each other accountable. Do you do anything like that with him?
Nothing structured.
Okay.
I cook for him.
That's
I love
nice.
to cook. I'm a big cook, and so I cook for him, and we'll do movie nights and stuff like that.
Did you feel like there were people that you had kind of evangelized atheism to, that once you became a Christian, you needed to reach back out and be like, I told you the wrong things?
I would say the most is with my sister and my mother, of trying to talk to them now about all of the faith. And my sister has actually become a Christian now. My mom is scared, but working on it, and I'm trying to help her out with it and everything.
Is your sister married with kids?
She's not married yet. She has a boyfriend who she's had for a long time, and it's looking like it's going to be that close.
Cool.
So that's really good. Yeah.
You were at PragerU for how long?
Roughly 6 years. Yeah.
That is long. So I've been with Turning Point for 5 years this summer.
Well, when I was starting out, I remember talking to you like when I first moved out to LA.
Yeah.
Talking to you just about shows you were doing, all the things going on.
So how did you even end up there in the first place? You're a college student. You end up working at PragerU. Talk about that.
Well, I was in college and I said, all this is super stupid and I hate it. So, I was sitting in a class. There was a black girl next to me, this sociology class, and my teacher assistant at the time, she pointed at me and said, "You are oppressing this girl next to you because of the color of your skin." And that was so strange to me, that I was oppressing someone just because I was white. Especially, I went to a school that I was the sore thumb. I was the white guy, and there was lots of black people and Mexican people all around. And I didn't feel like I had any white privilege when I was going there, I can tell you that. And so it was very strange to me. And so I started looking into a lot of different things. At that time, this was 2016. So this was when Milo Yiannopoulos, Gavin McInnes, the early Ben Shapiro videos, that kind of stuff, Lauren Southern on the street kind of things. And I started watching all these things and reading a lot more and getting into it. And I said, man, the world is so much different than people ever told me that it was. You know, it's way, way different. And so then I found out about Turning Point and then PragerU. I worked for Turning Point for about 4 months as the field rep for New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming. So I was a field rep for them, going across the 3 states and setting up chapters at the different schools while I was still in school. And then I dropped out of school, got in touch with PragerU, and they offered me a job, long story short, and I moved out to LA. Dropped out.
Did you know that you were going to have this on-camera, like, conservative influencer man on the street job, or they were just like, we're hiring, you didn't even know what it was?
I knew a little bit. So I made a video on my campus interviewing girls, what they thought about the wage gap. And I shot the video myself, edited the video myself, and sent it to PragerU, and they loved it. So I always knew that, I mean, I wasn't going to be in the back. So I was going to be someone who's up in front talking to people and doing things like that, which is very strange because I was a very shy young man growing up my entire life. I was very shy. It wasn't until later on that I said, okay, I really want to talk to people and go out there and influence, you know.
Did you feel like there were growth opportunities for you at Prager?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think the growth opportunities, it was a startup. When I started at PragerU, people might be hard pressed to call it a startup now. It's got 150 employees. It's huge, you know, all this stuff. But when I started, there was like 12 people there, you know, and I was the youngest person working there. And if I wanted something from that company, I had to work for it. I had to work really hard. There was nothing that was promised to me. Things are a lot different back then, 7 years ago, for becoming a conservative influencer, conservative personality than it is today. It was like me and Fleckas going and doing man on the street with no sort of guidance, just throwing things at the wall and seeing if they stuck. If you wanted to make one of these rant videos, you know, that was like a totally new thing on your phone.
Tommy was really the pioneer of that.
Like all that stuff was totally different. And now it's just commonplace, you know, now it's just
everybody's
completely
doing it.
Saturated and so much is worthless. But back then it was super cool. You know, the stuff with Trump and 2016, the energy was just insane. It was electrifying. I'm sure everyone can feel that it's different now than it was then.
Yeah, I remember meeting you my very first YWLS in 2018. I didn't even really know what Turning Point was, but I saw the lineup of speakers. I was openly conservative. I was working in radio. I was co-hosting my own morning show in Indianapolis. And I just thought like, man, this is cool. Like, I don't know a soul here. I've never been to this event, but I'm just going to go by myself. I mean, I was like the normal attendee where they put you with roommates and all that, like other kids. I remember getting a picture with you and listening to Judge Janine talking about how like you need to find your niche and like find a way to talk about your beliefs and all that. And at the time feeling so stifled in radio, being openly conservative, working for such a liberal mainstream media company. And there were so many things that were going wrong. Like, I mean, I was constantly in trouble for saying stuff. I was thinking about like, well, where do my natural skills lie? What am I good at? What do I love about my current job? How could I mesh that with the conservative movement and create something new that is needed? There were so many female commentators that I really looked up to, and I love listening to them and I learned stuff from them, but none of them I felt like, oh, I could be her girlfriend, we could go to brunch. Like nobody felt that personable to me. And then also no one was talking about pop culture. The only time conservatives talked about pop culture, it was like roasting it. Like, why do you even watch this? Why do you even support Hollywood? Why do you like Taylor Swift? And I was like, well, I like watching The Bachelor. I like Taylor Swift. I'm keeping up with the Kardashians, but I call them out when they do something I don't like or, you know, say something ridiculous. I say it. I was like, why does nobody represent me in this movement? And so that's when I kind of brought this idea to Turning Point for Politics, which was my pop culture show at first. And so, yeah, at the time there was such few people doing this. And now I'm scrolling through Instagram and it's like, who in the world is this? You know, popping off on something. Everybody's commentating. Everybody's a conservative influencer. Do you feel like, you said a lot of it is useless. I mean, why do you feel that way? I know why I feel that way, but why do you?
I'll preface it by saying this. There's definitely some good people out there who are trying to make a difference, you know, but there are so many people out there, and I feel somewhat guilty that for some of my career, I feel I've been a part of this too, that you are not making it for other people. You are not posting the video of some trans kid at a school, or some crazy teacher in some school board meeting, whatever. You're not posting those things for awareness to show other people. You're doing it because you know that you're going to get something out of a video going viral
So it's
on
like
your
a heart
account.
check.
Yeah, it's like people want that attention, and they understand that this is a means to an end of getting attention from people. So that's why there's so many conservative videos. There's all these different things popping off all the time, these fake interviews going on the street, all sorts of these kind of things, because people just want the notoriety of doing it. And again, like we talked about at the beginning, people want to feel like they're a part of a group. That's just natural human behavior, unfortunately. People don't want to be the black sheep going out and doing something different and radical. They want to feel like they're a part of a group. And so people are going to continually find ways to be in this conservative movement, post the same videos that every other conservative account has posted, trying to post it first with the best caption and these kind of things. And that's like the world that we live in, and that's really unfortunate. And it drives me out and wears me out and says, well, what am I even doing?
Is that what you were struggling with after 6 years at PragerU of like, am I still culture changing the way that I was in 2018, 2019? Did you feel stifled? Like, am I contributing enough to the movement by sticking with this?
Yeah, I think because I would say about a year before, it was roughly a year before I left PragerU, I'd been saved, and that changed priorities in my life and things like that. And then I was looking at PragerU and I was like, man, I can't make any more man on the street video.
Yeah.
I was like,
I can't
go,
out.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't go out and interview these college kids anymore. Look, I'm getting old, I'm getting fat, I can't even blend in with these kids anymore. So, but it really just
felt like
about
that.
Yeah, not that fat. Will, you were always fat.
You don't look old. Yeah. I mean, you don't
thank
look
you.
old.
Yeah, but it was just like I can't do these same things anymore. There has to be more to life than what I'm doing now.
I felt the same way with all the pop culture stuff, and it felt the same way aging as a content creator in this space of like, I mean, I'm 31. I'm like, I can't be 40 doing pop culture and trying to appeal to 22-year-olds. I mean, I need to grow with my audience.
Yeah.
What stage is my audience in? And that's why it's like, I'm not married with kids yet, but I know that most of my audience is there. And so what kind of content am I putting out that's going to be enriching their life, that's going to be prompting behavior change and lifestyle changes that are so good for the country as a whole? I mean, that's conservatism and conserving these traditional values and how we eat and how we parent and raise our kids. And I just think that's so much more important. But I think I also felt burnout. What is the purpose long-term with this? I don't want to do this forever. And that's why I've kind of shifted into being like, I want to be in the health and wellness space. This is what matters to me.
Well, it's also just like, it's the same thing every day.
Yes.
It's always the same video. And, of course, these things are bad. Like some teacher saying, oh, I got a changing room for some tranny kid, in my classroom. That's obviously a horrible thing. But it's the same thing every single day. And, people will talk about, like, I'll get people talking now. They'll say, Will, you're not doing the politics stuff anymore. Will, you've given up. You've given up on the politics stuff. It's like, no, I haven't given up. It's not about it. You're missing the point. If you're relying on the politics and these kinds of things and your favorite conservative influencer to come and save you or rescue you from your life, it's not going to happen. The politicians and the people on your social media are not going to save you. You have to do that yourself, obviously with the power of God, but you got to come down to it and say, well, what are the things in my life that are messed up? What are the things that I'm doing in my relationships, in the way that I treat my body, in the way that I treat other people, and all these different things that are screwed up? How can I actually fix these things? We're so quick to blame others for the things that we don't have the guts to go and fix ourselves. And so it's like, yeah, I'm complaining about the same things every single day. I don't want to just sit here and complain anymore. And then people say I give up. It's like, no, my philosophy now is personal responsibility to all the people out there. They need to take responsibility for their lives. I was thinking this. I was like, if I set up a website, I go give a speech to 1,000 people, right? And I set up a website and say this exact same message. And I say, okay, all of you guys come here, and in a week, tell me what you are doing to change your life. You have 1 week, and tell me the next steps you're taking after hearing me speak, what you're doing to change your life.
Yeah.
There might be one person who goes on there and does something like that.
That's why I'm so focused on culture. Pop culture, it's like, Alex, I love your videos. I became conservative. I heard that sometimes, and that was really awesome. But since talking about this, it's like, oh, we've downsized our home so I could stay home with my kids. We took our kids out of public school. We're homeschooling. We took our kids out of daycare because I learned through your show, the dangers of how daycare affects attachment. We switched completely to all organic. I know who my farmer is, Alex. I never would have known who my local farmer is. This kind of stuff, I'm like, that is how we're changing. I mean, that to me, that is like, okay, real culture changing, because these are the people now that are in charge of raising the next generation. What are they going to be like when they weren't raised in government schools? They weren't eating the government food.
They'll be crazy people. And I love them.
In the best way.
Yeah, in the best way.
I had an ex, and one of the biggest fights at the end of our relationship in my late 20s was, I was like, it is so important to me if we get married, I have to homeschool. We have to homeschool. Like, my kids will not go to public school. And he was like, I do not want to homeschool, Alex. I want my kids to be normal. And I said, that's where you and I differ. I would rather die than have normal kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Because what is normal? What is the standard of normal today? And he did not understand that. And I was like, the fact that you don't get that, I was like, we're not compatible for marriage.
Yeah. People are so worried about not being normal. It's like people's biggest fear is separation from others, being ostracized, being the black sheep, being not a part of the group. It's like a primal fear of almost like instinctual of like, you're the lone caveman away from the other cavemen, and you're all by yourself and going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way that it really comes down to. It's like an instinctual thing for us humans that if we are separated from the group, we're going to feel terrible about ourselves. So a lot of times people will put self-preservation of their identity within a group above really anything else.
You created content with Prager for 6 years. I've been creating content with Turning Point for 5 years. A lot of people have seen all the Candace Owens, Steven Crowder stuff, Daily Wire. And I think a lot of people that consume content on the conservative right as viewers, they're like, are you guys prisoners? What is it like if you're not independent, you're creating content under a company? I mean, what was your take seeing all the Candace Daily Wire drama and that whole falling out?
I'll say, at least in my time at PragerU, I felt pretty good. I mean, the guy who I worked with, Craig, who's the chief marketing officer, he was the absolute best. I loved working with him. He would always tell me to go and do crazy stuff, and whatever I wanted to do, I could go and do it. So I really don't have too many complaints there. I know at other companies it's definitely not the same, but I know that my time at PragerU, I had a lot of freedom if I was working hard to do what I wanted to do. In terms of the Candace Owens stuff and Steven Crowder things, and I mean, I personally don't care. I'm just like, I look at these people and I'm like, those things get so much attention, and people care about that way more than they do about any of the other stuff that we've talked about on the entire podcast, which is crazy to me. It's like so crazy that's what people are so worried about talking about it. I mean, I guess if there's the real opinion, I think that a lot of these organizations do have a lot of control over their influencers and the people who are their personalities. I think that a lot of them get into it when they're young or stupid and sign some contract that they don't really understand, and then they're beholden to someone else. And so that's why I'm independent now completely, because I can't be beholden to someone else. I'm not doing Instagram brand deals and selling stuff or some influencer marketing thing. I'm not doing any of this stuff because it's just me. I don't want anyone else having that kind of say. I'm no one's.
Do you think that the Daily Wire is corrupt and anti-free speech?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure that just like any sort of company, you get super big. And what happens when you get big as a company? Bureaucracy. You get an HR department. You get a bunch of people who complain and bitch all day about all these different things that you're doing. And so that's natural for what I think really any company. You want to have some conservative company be the arbiter of truth. My advice would be, well, don't hire a bunch of people and try to be the biggest company, because as soon as you do, you got to follow all of the rules that a normal company in America follows.
Yeah.
And with that comes silencing. With that comes corporate sponsors. With that comes advertisements. With that comes differing opinions and butting heads and having an HR person involved to figure these things out. So I think that as soon as a company reaches a certain threshold, that's going to happen to anyone, whether it's Daily Wire, whether it's Turning Point, PragerU, any conservative company. You could have Nick Fuentes' anti-Jewish, anti-Zionist company start out small and then get big, and then that's riddled with bureaucracy, I'm sure, if it were to get to the same place.
Would it be in the best interest of Turning Point, of Prager, of Daily Wire to be having him on and doing that? Or you're like, if I was the owner, I would stay away?
Yeah, well, I think there's always a very good idea to have people like that, to have someone like Nick or any of his acolytes or something like that, to come and debate with people who don't who don't agree with him. I went on a thing and did a thing with Nick. This must have been like 4 years ago.
Oh,
you know?
really?
Yeah.
How did that go?
It went pretty well. I mean, he was a nice guy. I've known him. He's, good enough dude. But my problem with that sort of philosophy is not necessarily the philosophy itself. It's you're looking at these people. You're saying, oh, the Jews are ruining my life. The Jews are making it so that I can't get a girlfriend, like all these different things, instead of like looking at the world around you and understanding that the currency and the culture works by you being complicit with it. If you are, the Jews could be running the entire world, and that could be totally the case, right? But if you are coming and saying, well, because of that, I can't go and own a farm or do the things that I like or get married and have kids or make enough money to support myself, that's not on the Jews. That's on you. Now, I'm not saying Nick is saying this per se, but I'm saying, for any of these types of people, and that's the same with the Republican Party or the Democrats or any of these types of people who are coming and saying, well, the country sucks because of the inflation that's going on because of this president. Oh, so that stops you from living the rest of your life? You can't go and connect with your wife because Joe Biden's in office? Like these kinds of things, it sounds so ludicrous, but again, it is people trying to find some sort of scapegoat for so many of the problems that come into their lives based on a lack of poor decision making.
The Groyper movement is kind of adjacent to red pill movement. And you've got a lot of this red pill discourse on Twitter talking about how there's no such thing as good women anymore. Marriage is a waste of time. It's not worth the risk. What do you think about that?
Well, of course that's not true. There are plenty of good women, but there's less good women and there's less good men. In the exact same way that men don't want to take responsibility. Women also don't want to take responsibility for a lot of their actions. And they want to be these type of girl boss types of things who are very defiant, who are very proud, who are very arrogant. And then the men become essentially completely fed up with that and say, well, there's no good women out there. I know there are good women out there. Something that's very important in scripture is the Bible says the wife essentially will be submissive and obedient to her husband. A lot of women don't like that, right? A woman hears that today in this day and age, even Christian women, and they say, well, I'm not doing that. But they miss out the next line. The next line is, and their husbands will love them like Jesus loves the church, right? What did Jesus do for the church?
Died for the church.
He died for the church. So your husband is essentially putting his life on the line for you because he loves you so much, as long as you are able to take care of some of these other things and listen to his good judgment, right? That doesn't mean that it's not a 50-50 and this thing's going on there. But, if a man is not willing, and I struggle with this horribly, this is my biggest struggle, is dying to myself for someone else.
I think
right?
it's everybody's.
And that's so hard because you have all the things that you like and the things that you feel I'm proud about and whatever it is. And you say, well, I can't give that up for someone else, even though you should, because it's the right thing to do. And so you have all these men, right, who are saying there's no good women out there. Have these men died to themselves? I would highly doubt it.
Yeah.
If they're not willing to go and love the woman like Jesus loved the church, they say they're these Christian people, then they can't be expecting that. And of course, the woman has to do the same. If the woman's not doing the same, then you can say to her, listen, you're not doing it. I've tried to do it, but you're not doing it. Goodbye. But we can't just be going and blaming the other sex for all the problems that we're having in our lives. And it's just nonsense. Again, it's another scapegoat. You will be so hard pressed to go on Twitter in the conservative space, in the liberal space, health food space, Groyper space, and find anyone who's taking personal responsibility for any of their actions. It just doesn't happen. Because it's not what people want to hear. The only thing that gets clicks is the blaming of other people for all the woes of the world.
Speaking of marriage, the last we knew, you posted you were engaged, big announcement, and then it just kind of went away. Nobody saw anything else about it. Making food changes for yourself and your family can be overwhelming. I get it. One thing that is easy to switch for a 50 times more nutrient-dense experience is your seasoning. Do you use garlic salt or seasoned salt? Switch it out for Pluck organ meat-based seasoning. It doesn't taste like organ meat at all. It just tastes like regular seasoning for meat, veggies, salads, spaghetti, anything that you regularly eat. But you'll get the added benefit of organ meat and no microplastics, which a lot of those store-bought seasonings have, by the way. Organ meats are one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. Pluck includes 5 grass-fed, grass-finished organs: liver, kidney, heart, spleen, and pancreas. Pluck is so delicious, even Kids love it. They're always licking their finger and sticking it back in the bowl. Those of you who have already tried it tell me that your family can't get enough. And the best part is they have no idea what they're eating. Simply add as you cook or sprinkle on your finished dish to turn any food into a superfood. You can even add it to your takeout. My favorites are the spicy, which isn't really spicy, by the way, and then the zesty garlic. Pluck is the easiest gateway into a nutrient-dense diet. Go to eatpluck.com and use code ALEX for 20% off. That's code ALEX for 20% off at eatpluck.com. Are you engaged?
No, I am not. No, it was a very personal thing, a lot of internal things there. She was a fantastic woman. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out, and I truly wish her the best with everything that she's doing.
Did the breakup surprise you?
In a way, yeah, I think so. I mean, you never really know what's going to happen unless it's something that's happening for a long time. Our relationship wasn't the longest in the entire world, so it's hard to look back years before and say, oh, there were these signs and things like that. So I would say it was surprising for the most part, yeah.
Marriage is still on the table for you. You're not completely jaded?
I mean, as long as I'm not, a celibate on my dairy farm in the middle of Alaska, yeah, we should be doing okay, yeah. So, I mean, always looking. Had a really nice girlfriend just a little while ago, actually. It's hard to say how things are going there, but she's, again, a really wonderful woman. Just dying to yourself is hard, I can say that.
So what? What does that mean? You're saying I had a girlfriend for a little bit post engagement is what you're talking about,
yes,
and so
exactly.
does that mean that also ended, or you're seeing this person?
That also ended.
Okay, so
it's
who
complicated.
ended it? You or her?
It was a mutual thing.
Do you feel like commitment is hard for you?
I think it definitely has been in the past. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Why do you think that is for you?
I think a lot of it comes down to like we were talking about before, the dying to yourself, As I was saying, take personal responsibility. I'm, here taking a lot of the personal responsibility. I find it very hard to die to myself.
So for a man who struggles with that too, because I think that's super relatable, what steps are you taking to kind of work through that?
I think it's very easy to rush ahead in a relationship and go full steam ahead without putting prayer and Christ at the front of what you're doing. I think that's what I've done historically, and I've seen that it hasn't always been the most successful for me in not putting that first and saying, okay, these are my feelings right now in the moment. These are my emotions right now about how I'm feeling. And because of that, I didn't put what was actually the most important first. And I think if you're not actually prioritizing these things, it's kind of like the modern, like I'm talking about being a clinical counselor and these kind of things and talking to young people and all that. And it's like so much of modern therapy is just like me. It's all about me, how I feel this, that, without thinking about the greater plan and how to actually heal and mend relationships. And that's how I feel I've been in a lot of relationships as well, that it's about me and not always dying to myself to exhibit the things for the other person that I should be doing. You think about the ideas of romance and you look back 60 years ago, a lot of those taboos, or not taboos, but cultural norms that we have today of like this everlasting, every day is a wake up and romance are new things that, and a lot of them are made up by marketing companies, Mad Men type of guys in the 1960s and 70s. And that's not a poo-poo on love. Of course, people loved each other for a very long time. But a lot of these types of things about how romance should be and how you see it in the movies and how you see it on these things, it's just not true. And it's very difficult and it's very hard. And I think a lot of people, men and women both, expect people to just fall in love. And that's just the way that it is. And you find that perfect person for you. And it's just, boom. It's just going to work out. You know what I mean? It's not really the way that it works, unfortunately. And so my idea of romance has changed in that it's not this like every day you're going to wake up wanting to make French toast in bed for the person that you're with. You know what I mean?
Some mornings you may not even like them.
Exactly. But if you love them, that's still okay.
It seems like you understand that. I would agree with that. But yet you're still like, but I struggle with like fully dying to myself and committing to that person. And you're essentially talking about love as a choice. It's not a feeling, because you have to wake up even when you don't like them and be like, I'm going to be committed to you. We're going to have a family together, all of that kind of stuff. So I feel like it sounds like you get it. So what holds you back?
Yeah. I'm pretty ambitious, I would say, with the man that I've become and things like that. Right now I'm working on my next book. I'm also going to school. I'm working at a dairy farm. I'm speaking. I'm making videos still. Taking care of the home, all these different kind of things that I'm trying to do. And I've always been like that, ever since getting into this stuff. I've worked really, really hard to get to the place that I am. And that type of ambition and what I actually want from life, I find can be quite difficult. And I find that very hard to drop and say, okay, maybe I could not go to school and maybe I could not write this next book and I could just have it for me and have a small little homestead with someone I love and work a simple job and something like that.
Why do you feel like you couldn't do those things even if you were married?
I think I've watched The Lord of the Rings too many times. And I look at Aragorn and Frodo and I say, that's what my life is. And maybe this is narcissistic. I don't know. I probably sound arrogant right now. But when I look at my life and I look at the way that the people live in the world today with social media and stupid, everyone has air conditioning, except for maybe us right now. But, everyone has air conditioning, these comfortable, easy lives with no sense of real struggle. And then I look at something like Lord of the Rings and I cry when I watch the final battle because it's just so beautiful of someone dying for the sake of true moral goodness, laying down his life for someone else. And then I think about my life of like some simple thing where the only thing I care about really is my own happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Screw that. I can't do that. I can't. I feel guilty. I'll have one day, maybe I'm kind of bipolar or autistic, I don't know. But I wake up one day and I'm like, man, I just want to just have this one like simple life and do this. And the other day I'm like, well, I would be the best dictator there ever was, Not really, but you know what I mean? It's like I want to go on some grand adventure, some quest to live up to these things that I feel like are out there. And maybe I'm putting too much weight on myself and all of that. But
maybe you're underestimating the thrill and sense of accomplishment that you would feel being a husband and father also. And you're putting more weight in that. I would find that fulfillment in my more professional accomplishments versus that.
I think so. But I suppose maybe I misspoke. I don't mean it in professional accomplishments.
Okay.
I think maybe I have somewhat masked some professional accomplishments for a sense of self-inflated worth, which I think is wrong, which is part of why I'm completely independent now, that kind of stuff. But it's more about just having a life mission, a purpose that is beyond just raising a family and these kinds of things. It's like why all those young men were thinking of ancient Rome, right?
Whenever everyone was like, ask your boyfriend how often he thinks about the Roman Empire.
Yeah, because think about the world we live in. The world we live in sucks, and it's totally catered not towards men at all, And so men need something more from their lives. And I feel like in the modern world, we're not getting that. And so I'm constantly searching for that. Yeah, it's difficult. It's very difficult, I can say.
You mentioned that you're working on your next book. Is it going to be more health and wellness focus?
So I was writing that book. I was writing a health and wellness book, and I think I was going to call it. That was what I was going to call
Love it.
Yeah. So
what? Why did that name get vetoed? I love it.
It wasn't the name that got vetoed. I think I'm just not writing the book right now.
Okay.
So I've moved on to actually it's a fantasy novel.
Well, I wasn't expecting you to say that.
Yeah. So not one of these like new smutty novels or anything like that. This is like real high fantasy. J.R.R. Tolkien is my inspiration for writing this. But again, I wanted to write something that wouldn't just last for a 90-second Instagram reel and that would be the shelf life of it. I want it to be something that can last for a very long time, like The Lord of the Rings, like Beowulf, like something like this that institutes morals with people and teaches them how to live, no matter if it's 1,000 years down the line. So you can see kind of the barometer that I'm putting on myself with some of the things that I do.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. I think that's great. Talk about like your average grocery run. First of all, maybe you don't even go to the grocery store anymore. I don't know. So tell us like your average, I'm going to the grocery store. What are you picking up? And be as specific as brands. We love brands here.
I don't go to the grocery store for my meat. All my meat is from a local farm. So it's called Oliver Heritage Farms. If anyone's out in the Tampa, Florida area, they're fantastic. Ground venison, ground elk, ground bison. I eat a ton of ground beef. That's the primary thing that I eat most of the time. I make my favorite thing in the world that I make now are these burgers. And you take all these different meats and you put them together and then you smash them. And then it's an Oklahoma burger. So then you put the onions on top, you cut up the onions real thin, and then you flip them and then the onions cook into the meat. And then you put them on the, sourdough buns and everything like that with some raw cheddar cheese. And that's my favorite recipe in the whole
Have you
world
made
right now.
sourdough yet?
I haven't made sourdough. On my farm, the wife of the farmer has made some sourdough, and she's Ukrainian. And she always has me try all her different recipes and things like that. And then I get my milk from the farm that I'm at, and butter and cheese and all that kind of stuff. I would say I get all my fruit at the grocery store, all organic fruit. And if you're getting meat, it's far more important to get grass-fed than organic meat.
Why?
Because what the cow eats is much more important than whether it ate organic grain. If it's eating a bunch of organic grain, it's still going to have probably mastitis, which is the number one thing that cows who eat grain deal with. Especially they're probably, and I milk the cows, and I see cows that have had mastitis, and it's just not the same. So that's like a number one thing to look for. But cows that are fed 100% naturally, their natural diet, are going to be the healthiest with the best meat for you. So get grass-fed, grass-finished over organic. If you can get organic and grass-fed finished, that's better. But to be honest, the organic label is a lot of bought and paid for by a lot of big farms and stuff like that. So just grass-fed is the most important when you're coming to meat. Eggs, no soy, no corn, free eggs. So
what's interesting is I just learned this. I didn't know this. Try to not get eggs that say vegetarian fed because it's not natural for chickens to eat vegetarian. They need to be picking at worms and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, you want to be
foraging.
So it's weird if the case says vegetarian fed, that it's kind of like a red flag because that's not natural for a chicken to live that way. If you're looking for like a truly organic regenerative farm, that would be like a red flag.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone should find their own farm. I mean, you can, even if you live in the city, you can look up local farms near me that do eggs or something like that. And a lot of them do these like, I don't know, I guess you call them meetups. And then like every Friday, they bring all the ingredients to some park or university campus. And then you put your order in the day before, or not day before, but a couple days before. And then you meet them there and you get all your stuff and then go home. Like there's tons of different things like that. That's what I was doing when I lived in LA with some stuff. And now out here, it gets all delivered to my house. But
do you do any processed food at all?
Oh yeah, of course.
So what are your guilty pleasures?
Bread. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For bread, they do have this one brand at the health food store called Crystal. It's European, so it's not American, which will tell you a lot right there. But it's just all the basic ingredients, nothing you don't want, and they're pretty good. Except all their bread kind of feels like an English muffin. So, but they have like sandwich rolls, burger, bagels, and they're all kind of like the same.
So you're not above like having a Cheeto, is what you're saying?
I don't eat Cheetos.
Well, I don't either, but I'm trying to figure out when you say like I do eat some processed food, like are you getting Hot Pockets occasionally or what?
No, nothing like that. I'm not that bad. So, but I eat Chipotle. I'm going to In-N-Out after this. That's where they're sending my Uber.
Because it's a special treat.
It's a special treat. I'm not going to die. I'll be okay. Maybe a little bit of a gout flare up. Who knows? But, every once in a while is going to be okay. I'm not like a huge purist of you need to totally change everything and you can't have something like this. Your body is smart. Your body was created to adapt to toxins and flush toxins out of your body. I mean, you have kidneys and all these different things for a reason. If you're getting toxins into your body can do a pretty good job of massage.
But the problem is that people do not understand when we say in moderation. So in moderation, people think if I get Chick-fil-A twice a week, that's in moderation. If, every night I am eating Sour Patch Kids, that's moderation.
Right.
But that's all I have all day. I have 3 Diet Cokes a day, but that's all I do. I mean, that's in moderation to them. They're not thinking about, so yes, our bodies are designed to detoxify in that way, but the problem is people do not realize how much basically every food item is saturated with this stuff. It's like our bodies cannot keep up. So when you and I primarily we're always eating at home, we rarely go out to eat. We're rarely eating fast food. It's like we're truly living in moderation. I think to the average person, though, they try to use that as an excuse and they're not really doing that. So they can't ever truly detoxify.
Well, it's just so easy to go and get something that's not home cooked meal. I mean, so simple.
That's
like
the
last
trap,
night
is the convenience.
Last night I get home from the farm late because we had some extra things to do. We're rototilling the field, which I'm not a huge fan of rototilling because of a lot of people talk about rototilling and this is the whole monocropping thing. You need to do it to get the nutrients stirred up, but actually it's not so good for the soil. Anyway, tangent, but we're there for late and then get home and I ordered Chipotle for dinner because I was just like, I'm going to eat some Chipotle. I got to go on this thing tomorrow. It's going to be okay.
If you have to do fast food like that in a pinch, because I have those nights too, then Chipotle is my choice because they are cooking in seed oils, but everything is GMO free, at least, except for the Coca-Cola stuff.
Yeah. I don't remember the last time I had McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's, any of that. So
and you're not washing your hair.
No, don't wash my hair.
Why? Tell
Don't
me
use
the journey on
deodorant.
this.
Don't use soap, you know.
No soap on your body?
For my hands.
Okay.
Yeah, other than that.
Explain.
Yeah. What do you mean? What's there to explain?
Why no soap on your body? Why no soap in your hair? Isn't that disgusting?
I mean, I am pretty disgusting. Gonna be honest. But no, there's no shampoo and everything. All those shampoos, you guys know, it's filled with all sorts of chemicals and crap. And you can get the good shampoos and, you know, sure, and you can do that. Our ancestors, I'm going to be one of these type of people. Our ancestors did not have shampoo or any way to wash their hair, and they're doing just fine. I don't know if you haven't read it, you've got to read it. Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. You know what I'm talking about? No. By Weston A. Price.
Oh, yes.
And he has the pictures of all of the Aborigines people and all the different groups of their teeth and their hair and all these different things. And then he puts them onto the Western diet, and you can see it. I mean, the discoveries that he made is just insane. Like, I don't use toothpaste, any of
You don't use toothpaste?
No, I don't use toothpaste.
What?
Can you smell my breath from here or what?
No, but then...
But that's because bad breath comes from the gut. It doesn't come from the mouth, unless you have like really decaying teeth. But like raw milk is better for your teeth than like any of these toothpastes that you'll get.
You are more radical than me.
Probably.
I'm not going without toothpaste. Now, what I have done is I have switched to a holistic dentist. No fluoride. I have a totally like clean, non-toxic toothpaste. I don't use any fluoride or any of that stuff.
And if people have mercury fillings, you got to get the mercury fillings removed out of your mouth from your cavities.
Yeah.
That's the #1 killer.
I interviewed a holistic dentist, one of the best holistic dentists in the country. He works in Portland, Oregon. Dr. Kelly Blodgett, back in March this year, was super popular because he went over all that stuff, root canals, avoid them at all costs, all that. But what I don't understand, you don't use toothpaste.
No, I don't use
But how do you handle buildup and just the filminess and like scraping your tongue and all of that?
I've done the copper scraper on my tongue for bacteria and stuff like that.
So day and night, you just wake up and you just go.
Yeah. Mostly people are going to be like, this dude is disgusting.
Okay, and the girls that you date, they know that you don't brush your teeth and they are not like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, they might give me some crap for it, you know.
But they don't care?
No, because my breath doesn't smell. My mouth is clean.
Are you doing 6-month checkups or what?
I haven't been to the dentist in years. I don't know.
This is radical, Will. I was not expecting this.
Yeah, I haven't been to the dentist in years. Yeah. I use soap on my hands and things like when I cut 2 days ago, I got like a 3rd-degree burn on my hand from using a grinder. Not the app. Using a grinder for grinding metal off the rototiller. What we did with the farmer and the wife, we put aloe on it, just straight aloe from the garden, rubbed it on it, and then put mint. And mint is a natural pain reliever. So instead of using some antibiotic or some ointment or anything like that, you put mint, just a fresh mint leaf on it, wrap it up with some good gauze, and it's ready to go. And it's good.
Another thing is raw honey.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
On your wound instead of with the aloe. Mint is great. And then, you put, by the way, non-toxic Band-Aid, we just found out you're getting forever chemicals seeping into your open wound, causing cancer through the traditional Band-Aid brand we all grew up with. So I got these like non-toxic bamboo Band-Aids for, emergency. Anyway, that's a great tip. I think that's great. But yeah, I wasn't expecting you to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did brush my teeth last night.
Oh, well, thank you. I feel honored.
Yeah,
thank you for doing that for me.
My yearly toothbrushing. I'm going on this show. I better come on. But it's just like really like all these things that it's going to sound gross. I know you guys are all going to be giving me crap for this, but it sounds gross. But all these types of things, I guarantee you've never tried not doing it.
That's true.
And like shampooing for 6 months. How many of you guys have ever done that? Yeah, it's going to be very, very few of you. And once you do it and you get over the hump of the greasiness in your hair, it's about, at least for me, and I have pretty long hair for a guy, it was 2-3 weeks of greasiness. And then after that, just the best hair I've ever had in my life. And you guys know I've had good hair for a long time. I mean,
wouldn't the no brushing your teeth thing only work if somebody is eating like a regimented, clean diet like you and I?
You're exactly correct.
Because do all the girls that you have dated, are they all living the same way as you? And then if they're not, would you be okay if they're not ever brushing their teeth? Because I just feel like that's different. Question.
No, it definitely is. It's like these people, again, going back to the Weston A. Price and nutrition and physical degeneration. He did these studies on the Eskimos, right? And these Eskimos, they would take a fish, they would catch a fish, and they would bury it in the ground for 3 weeks, and they would let it rot, and then they would eat it because it built up. I mean, they didn't know this, but they just did it for hundreds and hundreds of years, but it would build up all this bacteria that would be super good for their gut and for their entire body. Now, if a normal person today were to go and eat that fish that was in the ground for 3 weeks rotting, you would be sick, keeling over. You wouldn't know what to do because your body it's not meant for it, right? So if you're doing something like not brushing your teeth and you're eating a bunch of stuff that is getting stuck in your teeth, that's wearing down the enamel, that's wearing down your gums, all these kind of things, you are going to have an unhealthy mouth. But if you are doing things that are good for your body, good for your gut. I mean, we haven't even gotten to this, which is the number one thing that people aren't talking about is parasites. I don't know if you've done. I don't know if you've done a thing on it.
Highly requested. Can someone please talk about parasites? Please talk about parasites, and I have not.
Oh yeah,
so please go into it. It's
so huge.
Give us your elevator pitch.
So I take ParaGuard. Everyone should be doing this 3 months out of the year. Basically, it's this solution. It's wormwood, black walnut, cloves. That's right. What did I say? Wormwood, black walnut, cloves. Yeah, and you can do pumpkin seed stuff too. But it's essentially you're killing all the parasites within your body. Like when you are at home tonight, you guys, maybe you're watching this at home after dinner and you say, man, I wish I could have some ice cream right now. Some ice cream after dinner. That sounds good. Parasites, brain parasites, all sorts of parasites within your body that are causing all the problems.
Crave the sugar.
They crave the sugar. The most important thing is that parasites are a cause of so many of the issues that people have and they don't even know it.
How do you know if you have them?
Everyone has them. Anyone who eats a steak, raw, or you're living in the world. If you have pets, the wife of the farmer, she says she will never have a dog in the house because they're riddled with parasites. She will never have a cat in the house because they're full of parasites. I'm like, I love my dog. I'm going to sleep with it, even if it has parasites, who cares? But in reality, that's very true. All the animals that you're around every day have parasites in them and they transfer to you, the human. And it's terrible for you. The parasites cause so many issues within your body that people really have no idea about. I was talking about inflammation before.
Oh, yeah.
So much comes from parasites in the same of inflammation.
So you don't want to give up your toothpaste quite like Will. Okay, I don't blame you, but you would like something less toxic. I've been on a journey myself trying to find a toothpaste brand that I trust. Let me introduce you to Zebra. Zebra is a revolutionary home product and body care brand created by a Dallas mom taking a stand against corporate deception and toxic ingredients with American-made home and personal essentials, prioritizing ingredients that are black and white. Get it? Zebra? Zebra has mint and a coconut toothpaste, which is proudly made in the USA with 0 ingredients discovered by NASA. No fluoride. They use calcium carbonate and theobroma cacao derived from chocolate as a proven remineralizing powerhouse combo infused with essential oils and xylitol for what they believe is the best oral care combination of safety and efficacy on planet Earth, not the moon. They also have non-toxic tooth tablets, floss, and the best deodorant ever. Go to yayzebra.com and use code Alex for 10% off any order. That's yayzebra.com with code Alex for 10% off non-toxic toothpaste, deodorant, and more. The vagine is even more absorbent than your mouth. It really matters what type of feminine products that you're putting down there. If you dread your period because you have the worst cramps known to man, your tampons may be contributing. Ditch forever chemicals and heavy metals found in the most popular tampon brands and switch to Garnuu pads, tampons, and period cups. Garnuu is a conservative, non-toxic period brand company with 100% organic cotton products. No weird chemicals, dyes, fragrance, or glyphosate. I know a lot of people are getting on the period cup train, and Garnuu has those too. Garnuu stands for Rescue in Nepali, and proceeds from every purchase help to fight to end human trafficking, not abortion like other tampon brands. You can set up Garnuu to be delivered straight to your door just in time for Strawberry Week, and I pay less than picking up a box each month at the drugstore. Go to Garnuu.com, that's GARNUU.com with code Alex for 15% off. That's code Alex for 15% off non-toxic organic cotton feminine products. What are some of the most radical wellness things you've done? Like, have you done a coffee enema yet? Like, weird things like that everybody's into in this community. Have you tried anything crazy?
Well, I guess it's not brushing your teeth, but the number one thing I would say, I did the raw milk diet for 5 days.
What's the raw milk cleanse?
So
only
raw milk. Only raw milk. So no food, no water. 5 days, just raw milk. I meant to go for 2 weeks, but I couldn't last.
Is this something you came up with or someone else did it?
No, it's actually a protocol. The thing, that people don't know about raw milk is that raw milk is medicine. I know people say that like that's like, a new kind of catchy thing, but raw milk has literally been medicine for hundreds of years in this country and throughout the world.
What are the benefits for somebody who has no idea? Why are people talking about raw milk? I don't get it. Isn't it unsafe? What would you say?
Well, think about a baby calf, right? And it's going to its mother and it is taking this raw milk from its mother. Why does it do that? Because it is the perfect food to give the calf all of the nutrients that its body needs. Now, you are not a cow, obviously. They're ruminants, different stomachs. That's why I don't recommend people eat green leaves or any sort of salads or anything because your stomach can't handle them. But essentially, it is this perfect food that is giving you all of the nutrients that you need. Vitamin D, vitamin K, the enzymes that are present with it that will help your gut, that will help your teeth, that will help all of the neurons in your body, all of these things. It's literally the perfect food, It's meant to preserve life only sustained on that. And so it was essentially used a lot in the early 1900s in this country as a preventative medicine for people with diabetes, with sleep issues, with anxiety. Doctors would actually prescribe people raw milk as medicine for them to cure all these different things.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was a huge thing. I mean, before the whole thing with swill milk and all of that in the 1800s and, Upton Sinclair and the jungle and all this kind of stuff, raw milk was used as medicine.
Okay, but then why did we start pasteurizing milk? Obviously, they must have found something that was super dangerous.
Well, that's swill milk. So because you were having raw milk that was put into all these factory farms, which is still going on today, which is horrible, but you have these cows that are shoved in next to each other. They're dying. They're full of tuberculosis. There are all these sorts of things. And the milk came out blue. It was raw milk, but it was called swill milk. It came out blue. It was disgusting. And people started drinking this and they got sick. Of course you're going to get sick. You're feeding these cows a bunch of slush from beer manufacturers.
Yeah, they were eating garbage because this was when we all left the country. We all started populating the cities, and everybody's bringing their cows, and you have nowhere to put them. So you're putting them in these warehouses and these buildings in the city. And yeah, you can't get them normal food. They don't have access to grass. And so they start eating trash, and then the milk is poison.
Yeah. And they got Louis Pasteur and all these type of guys and talking about, we got to pasteurize the milk, that'll do it. And it seemed like a good enough solution. But when you have all these cows who are eating these garbage diets still, yet you think that it's okay because you've pasteurized the milk and homogenized the milk, it's not edible for humans. Humans can't eat it. They can't process that inside their bodies because it's lacking the proper enzymes to be digested by a human. So it just doesn't work. So the way that you should be doing raw milk is that it has to be regenerative farming, as you talked about. I mean, it has to be from healthy, happy cows who are eating what they're supposed to be eating naturally and then getting the milk in a way that is natural. If you're putting them all next to each other and giving them bad diets, you're going to be having terrible milk.
Okay, so the top books that somebody starting their health and wellness journey like you, that's like, I want to be like Alex and Will. I want to be radicalized.
You don't want to be like me. Okay.
If they want to get radicalized, right, what are your favorite book recommendations or documentaries or whatever?
The number one is Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. That one is number one. He's the guy who the Weston A. Price Foundation is based off of. And also Weston A. Price Foundation, they have little groups around the country too.
Yeah, and they will help you find your raw milk, your local farmers, teach you how to ferment your beans or whatever they're doing.
Yeah. But that's number one for sure. Documentaries, this one's, probably not super conservative. I don't know what the people are, but it's called The Biggest Little Farm. You guys seen that?
I know what you're talking about. I think that's one I haven't watched yet.
Okay. It's really cute. Okay. These couple moves from California and they go and they start their own regenerative agriculture farm and it shows their journey and steps. It was on Netflix, I think, and now it's on Amazon. And I really enjoyed that. That was a fantastic thing. And then, you guys already know all the stuff from Sally Fallon Morell and all of the Wise Tradition stuff and getting their magazine and things like that. You get the magazine?
I do.
Okay,
I get the magazine.
You get the physical magazine.
I'm like Hilda Labrada Gore's biggest fan. I had her speak at YWLS and we went to Joel Salatin's farm together to tour it. I'm obsessed with Weston A. Price.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fully in the cult.
Okay, good. Yeah. Now I'm trying to remember the book about cancer that I read that's so important.
Cancer is a metabolic disease. You are fully on board with that? Because that's how I feel about it.
For the most part, yes. I think your body naturally has cancer cells in it, right? Everybody's body already has cancer cells that are within it. It's about the things that come from your environment that can actually express those cells to fight your own body.
Epigenetics, all that kind of stuff.
Right. You believe in viruses?
No.
No? Okay, good. Okay. Look,
am I radical enough for you?
Wait, are you a flat earther?
I'm not a flat earther.
Okay.
Are you?
We'll get you there. We'll work on it.
All right. You are far.
Oh, I'm way out there. I'm like,
so
I don't know how I'm allowed in any
fake?
Conservative circles anymore.
Moon landing.
Yeah.
Fake?
Oh, yeah.
9/11?
Well, it happened, but I mean, people died.
Right.
But the way that they said, no, of course not. No.
All right.
These are like common knowledge.
So we'll have to do part 2 because there's clearly like a lot more I need to learn from you.
Yeah. Read the Book of Enoch. All you Christians out there, I know they say don't read it, but read the Book of Enoch.
And tell us about your books too.
My books, there are 2 of them. Is How to Win Friends and Influence Enemies. Wrote that one while I was at PragerU doing all the man on the street. It's essentially breakdown of all the biggest political, cultural topics and how to actually change minds on them. When I was making all my man on the street videos, the number one thing I wanted to do was not just to show, haha, look at this stupid liberal. I wanted to change people's minds. And if that wasn't the person I was talking to, at least it was someone who was watching the video and saying, hey, that's a good way to actually talk to people. Number one thing I always got was, Will, how do you stay so calm when you do what you do? And that came with a lot of practice of being able to do that. And so I wanted to give people those tools. And so that was the first book that I wrote. The second book is called Do Not Comply. It's like you were talking about growing with your audience. I feel like this one was growing with my audience. It's a little bit more mature. It breaks down a bunch of the biggest things going on today. Big pharma, big media, big tech, the conservative movement, all sorts of things that I see are going wrong and how people can actually use their own individuality to fix the problems that are happening. Do Not Comply is not just about COVID and vaccines and not complying with that. It's about not complying with the way that what I call them the slave owners, these people who are in control of this country, want you to act.
Well, when the Inevitable Health and Wellness Will Witt book comes out, please come back so that we can discuss that and get into all the stuff that we didn't have time to today. Yeah. I feel like we covered a lot of ground. I learned stuff about you that I didn't know. I'm really passionate about getting more conservatives to care about this kind of stuff. So it's been fun to watch your content change, and you're posting about a lot of the same things as me. So people, where can they follow you on social media?
Well, to say this real quick about what you just said, because it's very important. The health stuff that you're saying. If people are not healthy enough and cognitively there enough and hereditarily with their children and looking after them and all this stuff, if they are not there, how do you expect to fight for your country?
Yeah.
How do you fight for your country if you're overweight and you're lackadaisical in your mind because of all the bad food that you've been eating and you have bad relationships because of what you eat and what you take in from the environment? All these kind of things. If you have bad health, you are not going to be able to fight against a tyrannical government, especially the overreaching government that we have. So it's imperative that people look at this kind of stuff and take care of it. Where can they find me? Right here, I guess. But in social media and stuff, you guys know the Will Witt. You can find me there on Instagram, and then you can order my books on Amazon or anywhere books are sold.
Cool.
So.
We'll put all that in the show notes as well, so you can find them, all the links. Thank you so much, Will, he flew, you don't know this, but he is flying. He flew here in person to do this interview with me. You're immediately getting on a plane now to go back all on the same day. This is like a 9-hour day of flying.
Oh, those cows got to be milked. I can't be leaving the cows.
He's legit. You know? He's walking the walk, y'all. Thank you so much, Will.
Thank you, Alex. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
I don't think I've ever heard Will get so candid and personal before. I absolutely love this interview and the direction that Will is going with his content. And in case you haven't heard, we have a new name, new Instagram, and are now 2 episodes a week, Mondays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, plus a super special solo episode on the last Monday of each month called Lobotomy Hour. My chance to go crazy, vent about what's going on in the news, my life, my wellness routine, all the things. On the next episode this week, I'm talking with the most controversial and countercultural woman in aesthetics. She's a facialist who says, don't wash your face. You have to hear it to believe it. Please leave a 5-star review for the first ever episode of Culture Apothecary. You are going to flip over the variety and caliber of guests that I have planned for this season. To thank you, be looking for some super special treats at tpusamerch.com this week, and make sure you're following us on Instagram at Culture Apothecary for way more than just show content. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Culture Apothecary.